Hello, Construction Business TV. It is reporter and journalist Tonia Michele back again with yet another great interview. Today, you will be watching an interview with me speaking to CEO, business owner, and full time employee of his very own AirWeb Digital. Man, oh man, did we talk about some great stuff. So, this is definitely a video that you want to watch all the way until the end. So sit back, relax, and of course, enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Finish this scenario for me. If your computer crashed, if your computer crashed in the middle of a major project, how would you initially respond? And be honest with us. What's your first initial response?
My computer, so you're talking about my equipment, like what I'm using for that project. Oh my gosh. Okay, I would hope my hard drive isn't crashed, if that is good, because I've had that happen to me before and I didn't even know how to react to that. But I'd probably have to go pet my cat or something and like relax and, and not blow up, because that's like my lifeline for work. And that's communication, that's software, that's, work in progress. So yeah, that'd be rough to handle. I don't know. And then go to the library. You got to have a backup plan. So I'd go to the library and go finish something, because everything's also on the cloud, which is a really big convenience nowadays. But yeah, that's a tough one, because I've had my hard drive crash before, and it was the worst experience. You lose files and everything that you've been saving for like a year, and thinking like you're going to go back and work on it and no backups and stuff. So you learn off of those things, but yeah, it's not fun. It's not
Yeah,
fun.
I can only imagine. The good thing though is that now that we have like Instagram and Facebook, a lot of the videos that we do have, we have them on different outlets. So it's like, oh man, I did lose it, but at least I can go and get the final product of what I made. But that's something.
Yeah, it's crazy. We have that digital footprint everywhere now. Like I love
Exactly.
like getting the reminders, like, this is a memory from 4 years ago, 5 years ago, or even back, I think I made Facebook in 2011. So like 9 years ago, I'm seeing photos and videos. I was like, I don't even have that stored anywhere, but then you screenshot it and you got it again and stuff. So yeah, it's a big convenience, and it's amazing how that's working out. And I thank Facebook for buying all that storage space for us, because I know that server space costs a lot of money, especially when you have so many resources just being held on for years and years. So that's incredible that they're doing that.
Yeah, and I don't even think about stuff like that. So you're teaching me something. The server space, yeah, that's so true. Because I
Yeah.
know Apple with the iCloud,
Oh
they
yeah.
literally like you literally have to start paying for it. Because after a while, you're like, man, my phone's not working. And I'm out of iCloud storage and iPhone storage. It's crazy.
And then some stuff doesn't even go up to the cloud, and then you're like, you don't even know, or you can't download it if you don't have Wi-Fi. So it's weird, because like technology speeds us up in so many processes, but then slows us down and teaches us patience again. And it's funny, because in this space, if you're working with anything computer related, or even mobile related, people think everything's so fast, and it is in a way, but then you run into roadblocks that you have to think ahead a lot of the time. So it's more mental than physical, and that can really take a toll if you're not thinking ahead. And you're like, oh yeah, I got that. If let's say if I had a job, a project for a client, and it was on iCloud, and then I'm like intending to show that to them in person, and it wasn't downloaded on my phone and I couldn't download it, then you run into those issues. So I have to think, days ahead or hours ahead sometimes, and it really takes a toll on your body that you don't really think about.
So true.
Yeah.
All right. So can you please introduce yourself and tell us your role with the company AirWeb Digital?
Yeah. So my name is Marvin Rosario. I am the owner and head pilot, because a lot of our services are drone related, and now we just tapped into the VR space. So I am running the company full time. I am the only full time employee. I have a few contractors for VR tours that we build out for our clients, and then for video editing, I'm trying to get some more pilots. Part 107 is a license that I got in August of 2019, which allowed me to even think of this business idea, because you have to be licensed to fly commercially in the United States. So once I got that, it was kind of like off to the races, because I come from a web development background. So connecting websites and website experiences with virtual reality and the drone. It gets into a lot of cool stuff. So I don't even know where to start because it all started with just flying these things right here. It's funny because I'm sitting on the side now, but I have, these like toy drones that I started off with all the way to that little small one up there. So it all starts off with $20 drones from Amazon, and then you come up with cool ideas that people can find beneficial for their companies.
Very cool.
Mhm.
So you mentioned a little bit about how you got started in this line of work. Can you tell us a little bit more about where your interest in even picking up or buying your first drone and camera even came from? Like, where did that spark? Where did that interest come from?
My dad really, he he bought one from a local like hobby store, and he was just like flying in the front yard and like crashing it and stuff like that. And he was like, "You want to try it out?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I think that was like June or July of 2019. And yeah, we started flying and we flew. I mean, the batteries last like 8 minutes, so there is literally just to like send it up and like go around like a few trees and stuff. And you can't even send those past like 50 feet from you. So we're in the front yard and it goes around a tree and you lose signal and it doesn't have a camera and you're just line of sight flying. So practicing off of like small drones that you're just like finding fun as a hobby, like I had so much fun with it. And then I was like, okay, how can I make this, my business? I was working on websites and I was working behind a desk, 9 to 5 type of thing. And I really wanted to be outside. I grew up doing playing sports my whole life. So I wanted to go back outside and, just like enjoy outdoors and stuff. And flying drones, you can do that anywhere. You can get cool photos and videos. And that's like the first thought. And then it gets into using it for actual, unique applications for natural disaster relief and search and rescue. And that's where I guess my purpose came into it because Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico in 2019 or back in, I think it was 2018. But when that hit, I saw that AT&T was sending drone pilots to the island to help out with communications and to help out with gathering data. So I saw that, and then I'm flying drones in the front yard, and I'm like, there has to be a connection to this some way. And then come across a program that teaches you how to, or helps you study for the Part 107 license, and took the test, and the rest is history.
Wow, I love it. That's really cool.
Yeah. So I still fly those drones daily. Like these things, I'm breaking those daily to push my boundaries to get better and stuff. And you got to fail in the process. You got to fall forward because that's the only way we'll improve in anything, you know?
Yes, that's so true. So, so
Mhm.
true. Now, I read on your website, specifically your company states in quote, from strategy to creation to distribution, we're a full service digital media agency. Can you tell us, what do you mean by full service digital media agency and what services does your company provide?
So from full service, I mean kind of a complete suite. So if you can think of anybody from the construction industry to architecture to education, when they're thinking of how to make a digital footprint and how they're going to get in front of their audience, we'll help them out from strategizing concept ideas, content ideas, whether that's in the form of photos, videos, virtual reality tours, website designs, and different kind of things that we can add to your website to bring your audience to your website and engage with your brand and your message. So ultimately, we're taking that strategy and we're creating your content. We're distributing it into the right places in the form of social media, or because your website's your home, and you have to kind of connect these different rows to your home. And the way that you distribute your content is through social media nowadays. It's not really through. I mean, you can do print form and you can do more traditional print, but it's just going to take longer to get in front of your audience in the first place. So just finding a good strategy for anybody who has no budget to having a large budget, whether that's organic posting or that's ad trafficking or driving ads to their websites, we can run it all. So my experience in the last 5 years has came from that world. And then I also try to find the best people in this space to help me out with bigger projects that I can't take on because I know I'm not the smartest person in the room.
Nice. Now, you told us about the name behind the game, but
Yeah.
a little bit about how you started with your line of work in, flying drones. Can you tell us where the name came from? The,
Um,
AirWeb Digital, how did this, yeah, where'd the name come from?
it, I don't know. It kind of, it was merging to, air and web. Like I think about it a lot. I'm like, it makes more sense as it goes, but I'm merging too. So my first two passions was first building websites because I just like really enjoy the creative aspect. and I couldn't paint, I couldn't draw. Like that's my sister's thing, so I let her do all that stuff. But like building websites, I was like, I got like this whole creative freedom. So from I couldn't really write code, and I really like designing experiences ultimately. And and then air, whenever I started flying drones, and I just really found that love for it, and that that time could just pass by, and I can't think of anything else. I'm just focusing on this one thing. So I had to put those two together, and digital, because most of my line of work has been in front of a computer, and kind of growing up with a phone in your hands when you're like in eighth grade, and seeing Apple come out with like new technologies and stuff. It kind of gets you interested, and you're like, what is this stuff? So this has kind of just been like something I've just always been interested in. I'm first generation American, so helping out my family with like technical issues throughout the house and stuff has kind of been like, always a thing. Like the TV's messed up, the computer's messed up. So I've always loved being of service, to my family, and especially when it comes to bilingual issues, we have to like, go over those hurdles together and stuff. And I'm learning as we go. So that kind of translates into a client service business, and being able to offer that with my first two passions, it means so much.
So you mentioned about how, growing up, you worked with, fixing things in the house and stuff like that. So can you kind of tell us, I'm trying to, ask this question exactly how I wanted to get out. Can you share with me, for instance, let me break it down like this.
Yeah.
So a lot of people find out their passions because it's spoken over their lives, or it's stuff that they've experienced throughout their life that's kind of pushed them in that direction. So you mentioned to me about how you used to help around the house with technology. Do you think that played a role into, I know it probably did play a role, but can you explain to me a little bit more of how that played more of a role into pushing you towards building your own company, AirWeb Digital?
Yeah, I think with that, we don't really know our passions, and it's really hard for us to kind of figure that out. And a lot of the times we're listening to external voices, right? So going through, high school, and getting to, let's say, college, it's very easy to kind of fall into a role that other people have put for us. And laying down that own road is really tough, and that's not something that's just like happens overnight. So I definitely think that I'm learning as I go, and I have had to leap into this position because it's the only way that I know to get into something, just to dive headfirst into it. So I dropped out of college, and then a year later I started my company to do this, and I didn't really see a fit in the education system to kind of follow that path. And I was kind of doing things that I was always good at, but not necessarily proud of. Right. So it's really hard to distinguish those two, because a lot of people tell us that, oh, you're so good at this, you're so good at that. And it's really easy to listen to, that positive reinforcement. But on the flip side of that coin, you also have to listen to negative reinforcement. And when people are like, oh, you can't do that, that's not for you, then you kind of got to scratch that itch and, try it out and say, can I make this a reality? So I never would have thought that I would have gotten any kind of income from flying drones. It was literally just an idea. And to jump forward into that, and kind of just going head first, I came across that truth. So I think with the passion thing, you really figure it out as you go. It's like the artist journey. Like you don't know what you're creating. It just kind of happens while you're doing it. So you have to just, if you enjoy what you're doing, you got to figure out a way. Can I make this an income? And ultimately, can this serve me? Can this, benefit my family? And that's how I've been thinking the last couple of years. But yeah, it's really helped out to have a passion for it, because I wouldn't be able to do this if I didn't enjoy it.
And you mentioned falling forward. Can you tell me about a time that you've experienced a challenge and how you were able to come back from it and bounce back?
Yeah, there's one that like really sticks with me. It was earlier this year. It was literally January of 2020. And it was one of the like I think it was like second or the third job that I got hired out for. And it wasn't with a client of mine. It was actually me working under my name and working for another provider in the area. And well, not in my area, it was another area, but I was working in my area because I was closer. And I'd made connections with this person, and I was, I was saying I could do this, I can do that. And I think I bid a little bit more than I could chew by, and also I just didn't ask the right questions ultimately. So it got to a point where I rented out their equipment. I got paid out to do the job and stuff. and I rented out their equipment to use. I didn't have much experience with it. I never got a proper rundown of it, and I didn't ask for that. And when I got to the point of delivering that deliverable to my partner, they ripped it apart. You know, I got some really tough feedback off of it, and almost to the point where I was discouraged to even continue doing this. It was, you know, some drone work, it was some ground camera work, and I had specified into drone work, but then I bit off more than I could chew by saying I can do the ground camera work without having much experience of it, and kind of just thinking that I could, you know, do it after I watched some videos on it, after I asked these certain questions, but not knowing what questions to ask. And also, you know, sometimes we might not have experience to do things and we have to do it, but you also have to be wary of that and know that you're in the right position to not, you know, mess up somebody else's project ultimately. So yeah, it was tough. I almost got to a point where I was like, I was discouraged to the point where I was like, I don't even think I should do this. And it was before I established my company, months later, because, you know, it's like, I thought about it. And I was like, should I be doing this? Like, should I continue doing this? And then, you know, you just got to take that feedback and push on with it. So the same day, I mean, I don't try to think about things too long. So when I think, well, all those thoughts are going through my head in a couple of minutes. So literally the same day I was like, all right, let me get better. So I went back out, I started recording things. I started trying to get better angles. I watched more videos, and ultimately you just got to improve from it.
Cool. So I think that leads to a great segue in talking about how does your company and you ensure that your clients are getting the best quality footage?
So when it comes down to photos, videos, footage, or even virtual tours, which right now we're jumping more into virtual tours because we've seen a connection of using the drone as a part of the virtual experience. So when it comes to delivering the highest quality product, my biggest thing now is running it through a few advisors that I have and just literally saying, you know, what can we improve on this? What can we improve on that? My ideas are only as good as my ideas, but whenever I listen to others around me, you can take a good idea from anywhere. And it really comes down to having a core group of people that you trust and that you know are gonna give you good feedback. And when I say good, it's not necessarily positive or negative. It's both. And being able to distinguish the two, you don't want everybody around you to say, this is awesome, this is the best thing ever. You want people to tell you, you can work on this, you can work on that, because you know that there's always something that can be fixed and can be improved ultimately. So we try to deliver with our highest standards, and then, you know, we don't stop working until our clients are satisfied.
That's great. I love that about your company. That's awesome. So you told me earlier that, you know, you're the only full-time employee for the company. How big is the rest of your team? And can you kind of lay out to me other duties, you know, other jobs that it takes to get the final product done?
Yeah. So I am the only full-time employee. I'm I guess you could say CEO, or, you know, I don't even like titles like that, but just main form of communication. You go through me and stuff, and we talk about all of our projects, and then I relay that to two people who are part-time, and each of them work for either virtual tours, building out virtual experiences, and also building out footage and video content using drones or even using ground cameras. So we come up with media, and we make that media, we put it in the right place. So we come up with strategies for that, and all of that gets relayed with my two part-time employees. And then off with, also I have a few advisors that, I guess you could say advisors, you could say partners, friends ultimately, but it's just people in the space that can give you good feedback. And I always throw that, you know, back and forth with them. So they're working on their projects, and there's so much opportunity out here. It's impossible to be able to step over anybody's toes.
So educate me a little bit about flying drones. I know I watched on LinkedIn, you talk about different flight patterns. So when it
Yeah.
comes to you doing a project for a customer, is the flight patterns more of just like, oh, your idea, you know, how you think this should be shot, or are the
Mhm.
flight patterns, do they vary based on just what the customer wants?
It's definitely a mix. My first question is always, you know, what's their vision? Because if their vision is not in line, and my ideas are not in line with their vision, then it's really hard to come up with something that we're both happy with. So their vision ultimate first, and then I, you know, throw my spin on it. And I always have certain flight patterns that I would like to capture to get the best angles of a project, of a property, of a space, whatever that is. But there is also, you have to kind of improv as you go. Whenever you get to a site, Google Earth can only tell us so much. And whenever I scout out a location, for example, I flew for a shipping container space in Atlanta, and it's called iVillage at MLK. It's a really unique space. They offer out different units to rent out to businesses in the area, and it's right off of the MARTA station. So it's great for travelers to come by and stuff. And it's in this very tight space to fly through, and Google Earth didn't have that property updated. So I didn't have an idea of what I was getting myself into until I got to the location. And then flying through metal shipping containers, just throwing off the GPS of the drone. So the calibration of it can kind of get swayed, and it's not auto hovering. It's more so kind of drifting closer to the shipping containers. So I had to deal with all of that, like, while I was on site. And it was so tough to be able to even think about flight patterns or think about things that I had planned out. It was like, what's going to work out now because we're here, and that plan, you got to throw it out the window.
Has there been a time where weather has interfered? I know the weather, of course, matters when you're flying the drone. So has there been a time where weather has interfered with you shooting a project? And how do you just reschedule? How do you guys go about that when that becomes, a problem?
It's so it's funny. Yesterday we went out to a project in South Atlanta, and it was a good drive. It was about an hour and a half out. So I was like, going off of the weather, and then we're talking about a rain plan, and most of that stuff kind of gets coordinated for another day. But I always like to travel to the location, because the apps that we have, as great as they are, sometimes they are not that accurate. And when it's like 50%, there's another 50%. When it's at 90%, there's a small 10%. And I'll take that 10%, because if not, then on the way back home, I can stop at a coffee shop. I can get some work done anyway. So it's a win-win, because I've had so many times, I can't even tell you, that I show up and I'm like, it said it was going to rain today. It said it was going to be horrible. And it's a beautiful day. And you take that 10, 15-minute window. And if it's a commercial real estate property, I'm gathering photos or gathering videos, I'll be on site for about 30 to 45 minutes after I walk the location. But that window is perfect to be able to capture what I need. And then overcast is fine too, as long as it's not raining. But I've noticed it's funny, because some clients want, bright skies. They want the front signage shown on their restaurant, or they want their property, like the front of the home, to have like the sun on it. And then I work with some construction companies that they're like, when we build our decks and our screen rooms and our outdoor living spaces, we don't want overcast. We don't want the shadows, because it's going to throw off the color of the project, and it's going to look way off. We want it true to the eye. So I have to edit with that in mind, but shadows kind of crushes it whenever we're dealing with a space that's like tucked in the trees and stuff. So it's case by case. And then, I've had times where I was literally flying, got my last photo, I'm flying it back down, and as I'm flying, I'm like racing the rain. It's like following me like this, and then I land it, and then it starts raining as I pack up my drone. So it was like perfect. If I would have gotten there a minute late, then I wouldn't have gotten the last shots that I needed to deliver to my client. So it's tough. It's really tough you just gotta, take the leap and drive out there and see what it's like, because the weather apps are not true to what they say sometimes.
Yeah. And just adjusting, like you were just saying, adjusting as need be throughout it. So
Yeah, for sure.
So we have 10 minutes left, so we'll be good though. My question is, so I know that, well, many people know you need a license to fly a drone. What's that process like of getting a drone license, and about how long does that take?
It's really, I've seen some people do it in about 3 or 4 days of studying. If they don't have a full-time job and they want to take advantage of the weekend, they'll go and find a few YouTube videos and watch the whole entire things through, to where they're going through chapter by chapter. So I took mine. I went through a unique program, so I can touch on that. I mean, it was through 4 weeks of driving out to the site to study for 3 hours a day, for Monday through Thursday. So 12 hours a week for 4 weeks. And I got hands-on training at the end. And once I passed my exam, the provider that I was studying with also bought me my first drone. So it kind of catapulted me into being able to take high resolution photos, high resolution videos. And to kind of start off as how most people would by posting on social media and getting people, to be like, oh, wow, this is nice. Can you do this for my place? Or, can you do this for my home? And then so it was to go through that program, get licensed in about 4 weeks. I got hands-on training. I'm not good at learning online, and that's what I did in college. And I was like, oh man, this is tough to go through like modules and stuff. So I need to face-to-face interaction and be able to ask questions and ask as many questions as I can. And it was perfect. It was just enough what I needed. They also paid for my books, so it was a unique program that I went through because it was it's called Cobb County Work Source, and they help out anybody who is and in financial need to be able to take any kind of courses or any kind of programs that are provided by companies, but also by schools. So I could have went back to my old university and taken some courses there, but it's great because if you're in financial need, they'll pay up to $7,000 for the first year and $10,000 for the second year. So that $7,000 covered for driving on site, covered for my instructor's pay, the books, the exam fee, and the drone. So it paid for everything to be able to start off, what was a little bit of marketing that gets into some interest in the area that ultimately gets the company, creates the company.
So we talked about the drone license. Now it did cut off on you a little bit when you were talking. How long did it take you to get your drone license? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so it took me 4 weeks to
Okay.
study it. I think in about 3.5 weeks, I was prepared for the test. I took it on that fourth upcoming on that fourth week. So yeah, it took about 12 hours a week. I drove to my testing location for uh, Monday through Thursday, 3 hours a day for 12 hours a week for 3.5 weeks. Was ready for it. I'd flown about 10, 15 hours with their drones that they had. So then I was comfortable enough to fly with mine. But keep in mind, I'd been crashing drones for about 5, 6 months before that with my dad, with like the $20, drones in the front lawn and stuff like that. So we were prepared to be able to get good shots. Are you
How
interested?
long?
Did you say that you're interested? I think you said that you're interested, right? In like getting your license or something?
Yeah, I actually,
Yeah, cool,
I,
cool.
yeah, I have a YouTube channel. So, flying a drone, I don't know if I have to have a license to fly for myself though. Is that
Are you gaining revenue? Do you get like ad revenue or anything yet?
not yet, but eventually.
Yeah, right. So then it gets to a point where it's like when you do get ad revenue, they're gonna somebody from YouTube, if it gets to that point, would be like she's using drone clips in her videos and she's getting money, so technically she needs a license. But I mean, it's such a it's such a toss up, and also you could buy a drone, and then if you had somebody that was Part 107 license, or if you had a Part 107 license operator on site, they could literally watch you fly the drone and you could fly it with their supervision. So there's a lot of I mean, there's people that do real estate and they shouldn't be doing it like this, but agents would buy a drone that's under the FAA limit, the weight limit, so that way they don't need a license to fly it, and to do it commercially, because it's technically a hobby drone. It's not technically a commercial drone because it weighs so small, or it weighs so they're using that and they're taking photos and videos of their houses and stuff, and they don't need a license. So I think that's the Mavic Mini. And if you get it and you don't use the propeller guards, then it's like under the weight limit, and you don't need a license to fly that. And it holds up in about 25, 30 mile an hour winds. Like there's videos of guys that are like pushing it, to like 30, 40 mile winds, and it's kind of like still hovering it there. But I mean, it's it's a great drone to start off with. I think it's like $500 or $600, and you don't need any kind of license to fly that if you're even doing it technically commercial, if you got ad revenue and stuff, because I'm sure that's the plan with CBTV. Y'all will definitely get it. Y'all have a great set of videos and stuff, and you have a great audience that you're going for. So it looks very promising in the future.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So there are certain drones that you don't need commercial license for. Is that what you were saying?
Right. So
Okay.
most of these, are under the weight limit. These little like, so they're not needed. They're technically not a drone that a professional would use. So that's how a lot of people bypass that.
So I have a question that I specifically want. I've been starting to do on my interviews where I take, I ask, the company, the specific company I'm talking to, a question that I'll only upload to Instagram. So for my Instagram viewers, I want you to share your little wisdom because you're a smart guy, I can tell. So always growing though, it's all
My
good.
report cards didn't say so.
Yeah. So from your experience though,
Yeah.
I want you to answer this question. So I know a lot of people nowadays are battling with anxiety and stress. As a business owner who still has a life, of course, outside of work, how do you deal with stress and the feeling of being overwhelmed?
Well, by realizing that none of this matters if, this is something that Gary Vee says, and I know it's kind of like over said probably, but it's so true. And none of this really matters as long as, my closest family members are alive and healthy. And I've really had to put that into perspective these last couple of years. And just going through like life experiences, you realize that business it's a great thing and it can provide for your family and it's, aligned with your passions. But ultimately, if something falls through, then there's always something that's working in the background. And I've had to really attach to that because, with distribution of social media, we have things, working kind of 24/7 for us. And it's super easy to kind of get into a place where you're stressed for things that you feel is a once in a lifetime opportunity when you don't know when that next once in a lifetime opportunity is. And that kind of sucks because social media has pushed us to a place where speed is like the thing. Like we want everything fast and instant, but you have to be really patient with things. So I'm not expecting anything that's too much, and I'm not asking for too much. I can only control what I can control. And if my family's healthy and if I can see everybody at the end of the day, if I can talk to my closest family members and my closest friends and the people I care about, then, I'm happy. There's not much more to the game. So, it's really just putting things into perspective and just kind of realizing like what's important.
I love it. I really do. And I completely agree. I think that we put too much value in the things that don't matter. We spend
Mhm.
so much time worrying about the things that don't matter. Yeah, business is great, like you were saying, and money is great. It does provide, you need it to survive, in the world. But I mean, if you really look at it, it's like, man, you could die tomorrow and none of the stuff comes with you.
Exactly.
So
What are
we
you
don't.
taking?
Yeah, exactly. Nothing comes with it.
Little hard
Everything that
work.
you've done is left behind. So yeah, you could
Yeah.
have that Lamborghini outside in the driveway, but as soon it ain't coming with you in the grave. So
Yeah.
boom.
Yeah. And being present too, it's like, why would I worry about business? Like when I'm with my family, that's taking away time from my family. And it's super hard to realize that because at first it starts off with an idea and it starts off with something that you're so proud of and it's you're overcoming milestones and you're like, I started my business, I got my first client, I got my first big job, what seems to be big at that moment. And then it gets to a point where you're like, wow, I'm talking about all these business related things around the closest people that matter to me.
Mhm.
And that shouldn't be the conversation when it should be about present things, right? And I don't like to hear about people complain about their job. So why would people like to hear about my accomplishments with my business? It's more narcissistic than anything. So I just try to be present in the moment when I can, and I still got to practice it every day because I make these mistakes every day. And we wake up not really like that's why habits are so important. And it's not like things that I think about today are just going to carry into tomorrow. You have to continue to sharpen your sword. You have to continue to practice at it. So I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect, and we're going to get better at it. But by having notifications on us and having, this device in our pocket at all time, it does not help with being able to disconnect from business. So you have to have self-discipline with that, and you just got to work on it every day.
Congratulations, you have made it to the end of this video. Man, oh man, I'm telling you, it was great, wasn't it? Well, if you enjoyed it, like I said, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, hit that red subscribe button down below, and don't forget to turn on the post notification bell to be notified every time we post a video. This is Tonia Michele, signing out from ATL. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.